It's the beginning of the year 2026 as I'm recording it, and we are in the time where business leaders all over the world are making New Year plans and committing to New Year resolutions, which also means we are about a month or two away from most of the same leaders either breaking or completely forgetting their New Year plans. Research shows that only about half of the plans that leaders make around this time ever get realized, and that's the smaller half. So, to help a little bit in today's video, we are going to look at why we make plans at all, why we break plans, and I will give you 3 very specific tips for good habits that increase the chances of actually keeping the plans that you are making at the beginning of the year. So enjoy my first video of 2026. My name is Gabor Holch. I'm an intercultural leadership consultant and executive coach who has worked with leaders in Europe and Asia for the last almost 25 years now. That sounds a bit scary. At the beginning of the year, people, and very specifically for my video, business leaders, have the tradition of making New Year resolutions and setting New Year goals or plans. This is true about their diet, their exercising habits, and very specifically working with their teams or getting something big. It can be a bonus, it can be a promotion, it can be even something that you can purchase. Why not? But as I mentioned, research shows that only the smaller half of the people will even remember their plans 3 months into the year, and only the smaller half of them will ever realize their plans. Now, there are many problems with making plans and then not keeping them. But the biggest one, in my opinion, is a waste of time. If you spend time creating plans and then you don't keep them, then simply the time you spent on creating these plans is just wasted and could have been used for something else. So in today's video, I'm going to help you look at how plans are made and how plans are broken with the help of 2 things I absolutely love applying in leadership development and skills development. One of them is brain science and the other one is behavioral science. The video will also show you that actually keeping the plans is just a little bit harder than breaking them. I'm not saying it's easier. I'm not saying it's the same. You have to work a little bit harder to keep your plan. But if you build that into a plan, into a habit, it is not much harder to actually keep to the plans than to just forget about the whole thing. If you want to take me at my word and you want to check if what I'm sharing with you actually works, then just take this video, give yourself a reminder, and check back at the beginning of next year, 2027. And one of the ways to do that is to subscribe to my channel, which I would very much like you to do. But if you don't want to do that, you will find links in this video where you can message me, ask your question, or even, I don't know, remind me to remind you. Now, whatever your goal for the new year is, we are going to talk about it a little bit later. I will mention a few things about goal setting. But first, let's look at why plans do not work. Why we make plans at the beginning of the year and break them a little bit later. And if you look at the behavioral aspect of work and leadership, one thing that I would like to share with you is that we usually break down things, tasks, things that we do every day for work into proactive ones and reactive ones. Sometimes we call the reactive ones responsive ones. What is the difference between the two? Proactive tasks are ones that you initiate. Reactive tasks are those which are a response to something that somebody else initiated. So, having a great idea, putting it into a document and sending it to your boss, proactive. Replying 25 emails before you start writing that document about the great idea, reactive. The main reason why we break our plans, our commitment later into the year is because we get busy. And we get busy because of reactive tasks. Unfortunately, for reasons that you can ask me in the comments if you want to, the human brain is programmed to prioritize reactive tasks. So basically the way it happens is that we want to do something, then something else comes in, we drop what we wanted to do at the beginning and we start doing the reactive task instead. The best example is our mobile phone. So how many times it happened to you that something came to your mind, you wanted to send a message to one of your colleagues or clients, you wanted to check the weather or something, you opened your phone, you found the message, you started replying the message, and you forgot what you wanted to do in the first place. So this is how reactive tasks squeeze out proactive tasks. The plans, the New Year plans that you are making, most of them will be proactive tasks. So most of them are not going to say, I have to reply to somebody or I have to join somebody in something. But usually they are about taking control of your own life, of your health, of your family matters, your investment, or anything in your work. But then you get busy, emails start flooding in, requests from colleagues, from clients, from suppliers start coming. We feel that it's our duty to respond all to those messages, and our plans are just getting lower and lower in the priority list. And once I have said it out loud, you can already see what the solution is to reclaim the space for proactive tasks, the ones that you wanted to do for yourself. Now, to restore this kind of priority, there are many different ways, and maybe I'm going to talk about them in future videos. But in my opinion, the best one is to carve out specific times for tasks which are not reactive, which are not a response to somebody else's request, which are not done because your client or boss wants you to do them, the ones that you really want to do for yourself. So my recommendation is, for a week or two, watch your calendar, see what are the times when you are least likely to be disturbed. Maybe it's in the morning, maybe it's right after lunch, and then carve out specific times in your calendar when you are going to work on the things that make your New Year resolution, your New Year plan come true. Usually the best idea is to schedule something like an hour or an hour and a half, because if you're scheduling anything more than that, you are likely to be interrupted, boom, and then the reactive tasks again take priority over the proactive tasks. Now, you may have noticed that when I introduced this, I didn't go in the time order. I didn't start with setting the goals. Why? Because I think dealing with interruptions takes priority over setting the goals themselves. So let's take a step back and look at what your goals were in the first place. Most of the time, the mistake that people make when they set their goals for the rest of the year is that the goal is something that they want to achieve or something they want to get, not something they want to do. Now, if you set yourself a goal like this, I want to get fit, I want to become a vegetarian, I want to get that promotion, at the time right now and tomorrow and the day after tomorrow, for your brain that motivates you, the part of the brain that motivates you, it's something distant and it's something abstract, which means the motivation is not going to be very strong. It is going to become something like those reminders on your phone that keep popping up and you just keep ignoring them because those reactive tasks keep coming in. It's a little bit like what Garfield the cat said in one of the cartoons. What's the best day to start a diet? The best day is tomorrow. Similarly, if a leader, for example, decides that she wants to be a better listener this year as a leader, how are you going to check that? This is something that you can check maybe once or twice a year. You can get yourself a reminder, and then in the middle of June, in the middle of the year, you can say, am I a better listener now? Or she can ask a colleague, or she can ask a supervisor, or an HR professional at the firm. She can again check herself at the end of the year. But we are not good at keeping plans whose measurement is something that we measure once or twice a year. The human brain is much better at checking goals whose targets can be checked every single day. In other words, not what you get, but what you do. Imagine it this way. So this leader I mentioned, she decided that she's going to be a better listener. The best way to do that is to create a story arch in your brain. How good a listener am I right now? Let's say she's not a good listener because she got used to being right and telling people what to do because she has a lot of experience in her field. All right, what connects my listening skills now with the listening skills I wish to acquire by the end of the year? What is the story here? What I'm going to do more of? What I'm going to do less of? Let's say she decides that when she enters the meeting, she's not going to start the meeting by telling everybody how the project is going, but by asking the question, so how is the project going? This is one thing. And then the other thing, she decides that when somebody says something that she doesn't agree with, she is not going to immediately retort or tell the person why that doesn't make any sense, but she is going to keep quiet or even, let's say, ask an open question. This is a goal that you can check every single day. And these kind of short-term or frequent goals motivate our brain to keep our promise much better than something that we can check every quarter or every half a year. Now, there is a whole science about planning and implementation of plans on the larger level, entire firms, but also on the individual level of how to create commitment in yourself and others, and how to make sure that people actually keep up to that commitment. So let me give you a little bit of a quiz. What do you think is the best way to keep our commitment to a New Year plan over the long run? Option number 1, a mantra. A mantra is something that we keep repeating to ourselves. All right, I'm going to listen more. I'm going to listen more. I'm not going to interrupt. Something like this. Option 2, tying the kind of thing that you want to do more of to a previous event. So if something happens, then I'm going to react this way. If I'm starting a new meeting, I'm going to start by asking people how the project went. If somebody says something stupid, I am not going to interrupt but listen. Option number 3, a phone reminder or an app, basically that makes sure you cannot forget your commitment because you programmed it in your phone, or you are using a self-development app which pops up every now and then and reminds you what you are supposed to do today or next day or this week. Let me give you 10 seconds to contemplate your choice. Okay, you will get your answer from the rest of the video, but let me tell you what doesn't really work, and that's the reminders or the phone apps. Why? If you watch the beginning of the video carefully, already I think you can tell, because responding to a reminder is a reactive, not a proactive task. And this is why it happens to us so often that we set a reminder in our phone or on our computer, and all we do is just keep hitting the snooze button. Okay, so let's say you set a great goal, which is something that you do, which leads you to what you want to get or what you want to achieve, and which is something that you can visualize and check every single day. The worst is not over. You still have to work hard. As I mentioned to you, keeping promises is just a little bit harder than breaking promises. And the difference between the two is that once you decided what you want to do, you have to build it into a new habit. Something that you don't think about, you just do. A little bit like learning to drive. At the beginning, you have to focus on lots of things. It's very confusing. But a year or two into your driving experience, you don't have to think about which switch you have to turn or push. You just have to think about where you want to go. Now, what you have to know about habits, though, is that they are a little bit like a relationship. If you want to step out of one and step into another, the old one will continuously try to sabotage the new one. And there is one very, very good way to create this kind of automatic routines that you decide first and then you follow up second. And this method is used all over the world by anybody from police, military, security personnel, sports athletes and their coaches, people who practice music, people who lead teams, artists, and anybody who has to push through consistently with something that is a little bit hard to do. And that is the so-called if-then response. So perhaps you noticed that this was the second choice in our little quiz. Tie what you want to do, tie the commitment to your new habit to something that has happened just before. In this case, we call the event before a trigger. The clearer your triggers are, the clearer your planned response is, the easier it is to keep your new habit in the new year. You want to go jogging or you want to go to the gym twice a week. Then you say, if it is Tuesday morning, then I'm going to the gym. If it is Tuesday morning, I am going running. And then what happens if it rains? What happens if there is a family emergency? What happens if suddenly you have to sit down and on that very morning you have to write a paper? Just have a plan B if then response. If I cannot do my running or my exercise on Tuesday morning, then I will shift it on to Wednesday morning. Ironclad. The imaginary leader in our example, she said to herself, if I am starting a meeting with my project team, I am going to start it with asking everybody how it went. If somebody says something I strongly disagree with, I'm just going to ask them why they said that, or turn to the next person and ask them, what do you think? She can even have a plan B for that thing being dangerously stupid and having to respond immediately. She can decide for herself, if I have to respond immediately, then I'm just going to speak for 2 or 3 sentences and then ask the person or ask the team around me. If then. The very important thing is that once you decided what you want to do, once you created the story arch from where you are now to where you want to get, there is no thinking. There is no replanning. Follow your previously decided if-then response, almost like a robot. Maximum what you can do is every week or every month or every 2 months, you can stop at a milestone and you can look back. Is this taking me into the right direction? Now, what I'm sharing with you is not just coming from my coaching, my executive coaching example, and lots of people that I trained and follow up with over the years, but also my own experience. Anything from my sports experience to my leadership experience to language learning and beyond. But if you want to go a little bit deeper, and especially if you like reading books on this topic, here are a couple of tips. In my tooltip section, I would like to follow the 3 points I shared with you. So the first one is how your brain works when you are setting and following plans. The other one, how you set goals, good goals for yourself. And the third one, how you turn them into habits. And under each section, I would like to recommend 2 books. One of them is a little bit more laborious. If you really like to read difficult stuff, my original studies were philosophy and international relations, so I was trained to read very difficult stuff. But maybe you don't have the time or you don't have the mood to read books that are a little bit academic or a little bit technical. And then I'm going to recommend you something which is, I think, a little bit of a shortcut, but just as smart and just as useful, an easier, lighter version of the same book. On how your brain sabotages your New Year plan, but if you use it in a different way, can also help it. The first book I would like to recommend to you is The Leading Brain by my mentor and friend Hans-Werner Hagemann, leader of the Munich Leadership Group, which is specifically for people in leadership positions. Absolute treasure box of applied brain research specifically for business people and leaders. Check it out. If you want to get more practical, I can recommend Your Brain at Work by David Rock. Very straightforward, lots of visuals, usually larger print, an easy guide to a very complicated brain at work. If you want to go really deep, but very smart about how we usually set ourselves the wrong goals, then read Simon Sinek's The Infinite Game. Again, absolutely brilliant, but not the easiest read. If you're more of the practical or even technical type, I'm going to recommend to you The Kaizen Way by Robert Maurer, which is a blueprint that you have to understand once, and is going to help your goal setting and building new habits for the rest of your life. Maybe you heard about Kaizen, and there are lots and lots of books online about Kaizen, but this is the one I really recommend. And finally, if you want to understand how good decisions become great habits, then I can very strongly recommend The Power of Habit, a legendary book by Charles Duhigg, which goes very systematically through this kind of if-then response. Actually, this very formula, if-then, comes from Duhigg's book. But this is a really difficult read. Lots and lots of examples, and I think it is going to take some time for you. I enjoy reading this kind of intellectually challenging books, but if you don't have the time for it, then just check out Tiny Habits by B.J. Fogg. Even the name suggests that the whole thing is abbreviated. Actually, Fogg relied very heavily on Charles Duhigg's book and then simplified it to a world with shorter attention span and less time, but it is just as useful. All of these books are classics, and you can pretty much find them everywhere where English language books are sold, and your local translation as well. But if you just want to click and buy, I'm going to leave the links to these books in the show notes. Enjoy! If you found these thoughts and suggestions useful so far, like the video and subscribe to the channel, which will help you find my new videos. And also, I think you will enjoy a previous video I made about leaders who are labeled uncoachable. I think this video is going to help you if you feel a little bit lost with this struggle of setting ambitious goals for your own improvement and then keeping them. Check out my other videos because I share my worst and best practices from my consulting experience there. And if you want to go a little bit deeper, please check the links in the show notes, send me a message, or ask me for a coaching proposal if you want to work with me as a coach or a consultant. Of course, I always welcome your comments and questions. I'm going to do my best to answer them as soon as I can. Thank you very much. Find me online and drop me a line.